Hi everyone, so my name's Kelsey Ryan and this is my assessment portfolio assignment. So the student that I used for this assignment, we're going to go by his initials, AV, and he is a kindergarten student and in the instructional self-contained classroom. He is identified as having autism and he does have an individualized education plan or an IEP. Some baseline data. So for NWEA MAP, that is an assessment that is given to every kindergarten student or every student K through 8 across the nation, and it compares them to their same age peers, which I'm sure a lot of you do in your schools as well. So for math, the student scored a 165 and the kindergarten norm is a 150. So he is performing above his same age peers in the area of math. And for reading, he scored a 144 and the kindergarten norm is a 146. So he is performing just a little bit below his same age peers in the area of reading, but not by much. The model scores, so the student, since he's a kindergarten student, he took the access test for the first time this year. And the model test is given to the students at the beginning of the year to kind of see if they need ESL services. And so his model scores at the beginning of the year were a 1 in all areas of speaking, listening, and oral language. So he did take the access test in school in January, but those scores will not be available until next school year. So the student academic goals that I created for the student are taken from his individualized education plan. So for the areas of math, he will be able to solve addition and subtraction word problems to 10 independently with math tools to support his work. For literacy, he will be able to sound out and write simple CVC words or consonant, vowel, consonant words. For understanding stories, for reading, he'll be able to identify the beginning, middle, and end of the story. This is something that the student really struggles with, is understanding what is being read to him or what he has read. So this is a good goal for the student. And then for writing, he'll be able to write a narrative sentence with the use of highlighted lines for spatial support and prompting for punctuation and capitalization. His language goals, so since he scored a 1, which is entering for his scores for language, his goal is to be at the emerging level for listening and speaking. So for listening, this might look like sorting pictures or objects from oral instructions, matching pictures, objects, or movements, following one-step directions, identifying simple patterns, and responding to gestures, to songs, chants, or stories. For speaking, this might look like restating facts from a story, describing pictures or classroom objects, and answering with 1 or 2 words, and complete phrases in rhyme, songs, and chants. So for the student self-assessment, what this looked like is I sat down with the student, we had a meeting, kind of informally, and we did an interview, and so I asked him what his main goal was for the school year and just for in the classroom, and he indicated that his main goal was that he wanted to be able to read. And of course, this is something that we have working on all year, and it starts with those CVC words and understanding those letter sounds, and he has been doing tremendous with this goal so far. We also took a look at his MAP scores, and we went over kind of what the testing meant, and we worked together to create goals for the winter and then for the spring, obviously, of 2023. So here are some of his writing samples. So we looked at the rubric together. So we looked for uppercase letters, lowercase letters, punctuation, nouns and verbs, and spelling. So the sentence was supposed to be, "It fit in a bin." And as you can see, he's lacking that capital letter, the uppercase letter at the beginning of the sentence. The lowercase letter for A, it doesn't need to be a capital in the middle of the sentence, and a period at the end of the sentence. But his spelling, he phonetically sounded out every single word correctly, and during this we were working on the short I CVC words, and he did really well with his spelling after I taught him that, so that's important and that's good. And then here's another writing sample. So this one was dog got on top. And uppercase letters, he missed that at the beginning of the sentence. And spelling was good, nouns and verbs were good, punctuation, he was missing that period at the end of the sentence. So his writing is improving. So this is the assessment that we use for reading. So for understanding stories, we use a checklist for the standard. So the standard was about making connections between stories or people within stories. So all we had to do was put the student's name, and then I marked the date where he was able to complete that standard. He was able to perform that standard. So we were doing something during whole group reading, and I asked him to make a connection between two people in the story. And he gave me the answer, and then I marked it on there, and that was how simple the assessment was. He literally didn't even know that he was being assessed. This is the rubric. So they have all the I can statements on there, and what would it look like if the student was performing at a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. So this student is performing at a 3 because he was able to perform one of the I can statements. So he is at a 3. The next assessment I did was for math. So we are working on addition and subtraction within 5 for this assessment, and this was an end of unit assessment. So for the first problem, 2 cubes plus 3 cubes, he was able to identify. Again, this student is very strong in math. The next one on the right here, this student was to match the subtraction problem to the cubes. And again, he was able to do that well. He was able to do that independently. This question, number 3, this one was a little difficult because he had to go through every single equation and see if the answer was 4. So this is something that can be difficult for any student, especially an English language learner. So it's important that you need to clarify that he needs to go through and solve every single problem to see if the answer would equal 4. But he was able to do it, and he got that question correct. And then number 4, the last question, was just to answer 3 plus 0, and he was able to tell me that it was 3. And here is the rubric that we used for that assessment. So if he was able to do it, no problem, then he got a 6. And for that standard for KOA 1, which was to be able to represent addition and subtraction with fingers, mental images, drawing, sounds, etc. And then KOA 5, which is to fluently add and subtract within 5. So this is the Oracy assessment that I use, and I pulled this assessment. It is a speech and language screener for pre-K and kindergarten students. So I use this with my student, and I just went through and I answered the questions, and he did pretty well on this, but there were some areas where he needed some support. Like for number 2, I read it to him, and he said, every day she sing, not sings. Ebony is a girl, Maria is a girl, they are both friends. I think he just kind of that kindergarten mindset where like everybody wants to be friends. That's kind of where his head was at there. But he did well, and some other areas. So the comprehension and language sample. So I read him a story, and then I asked him some of these questions, and he was able to answer simple yes and no question. Sentence contains subject and verb, and stories include people that he tells. Right now, he still does need some support with answering those WH questions. And when he tells stories, he needs support with like telling them in sequence, including a setting or a where, and the outcome of a story. So those are some things that we're still working on in the areas of his oral language. So to conclude, this course really allowed me to get to know my students and family more in the terms of their funds of knowledge. I didn't know that the parents of my family, they didn't go to college, and they had different experience than what I was. So it's important to kind of understand where the families are coming from and how they use what they know to help them support their child at home. I also learned the importance of using viable assessments and the way we present them to our students. It's crucial that we're using assessments that students are able to access, and also providing accommodations if possible. You know, it can be difficult for students that that are English language learners to understand some of that key vocabulary. So it's important to take a step back and kind of understand and support them when needed. So thank you so much. That is the end of my presentation.